Transcedence. There is another reason why I have been driven to investigate the unknowable, which is also related to my new job. The previous incumbent of the chair of the public understanding of the science was a certain Richard Dawkins. When I look over the position from the Dawkins, I braced myself for the onslaught of questions that I would get, not about science, but about religion. The publication of the God delusion and his feisty debates with a creationist resulted in the Dawkins spending a lot of the later years of his tenure debating questions of religion and God. So it was inevitable that when I took up the chair, people would be interested in my stance on religion. My initial reaction was to put some distance between myself and the debate about God. My job was to promote scientific progress and to engage the public in the breakthrough happening around them. I was keen to move the debate back to the questions of the science rather than the religion. As a strategy to deflect the God questions, I actually admitted that I was in fact a religious person. I was, in fact, a religious man, yes. Before journalists got too excited, I went on to explain that my religion is the arsenal. My temple is the Emirates. It used to be a Highbury Stadium in North London. And each Saturday I worship my idols and sing songs to them. He's talking about football, right? And at the beginning of each season, I reform my faith that this will be the year we finally win some silverware. In an urban environment like London, football has taken over the role that religion played in a society of binding a community together, providing results that they can share. For me, the science that I began to learn as a teenager did a pretty good job of pushing out of any vaguely religious thoughts that I had as a kid. I sang in my local church choir, which exposed me to the ideas that Christianity had to offer for understanding the universe. School education in the 70s in the UK was infused with mildly religious overtones. Rendition of the All Thing Bright and Beautiful and the Lord's Prayer in the assemblies. Religion was dished up as something too simplistic to survive the sophisticated and powerful stories that I would learn in the science labs at my secondary school. Religion was quickly pushed out. Science, and football, were much more attractive. Yes, of course. Inevitably, the question about my stance on religion would not be fought off with such a flippant answer. I remember that during one radio interview on a Sunday morning on the BBC Northern Ireland, I was gradually sucked into considering the question of the existence of God. I guess I should have seen the warning sign. On a Sunday morning in Northern Ireland, God isn't far from the minds of the many listeners. As a mathematician, I am often faced with the challenge of proving the existence of new structures or coming up with arguments to show why such structures cannot exist. The power of the mathematical language to produce logical arguments has led numbers of philosophers throughout the ages to resort to mathematics as a way of proving the existence of God. But I always have a problem with such an approach. If you are going to prove existence or otherwise in mathematics, you need a very clear definition of what it is that you are trying to prove exists. So setting up your axiom, right? So after some bad hearing by the interviewer about my stance on the existence of God, I pushed him to try to define what God means for him so that I could engage my mathematical mind. It is something which transcends human understanding. It is something which transcends human understandings. Yes. It is something which transcends human understandings. At first, I thought, what a cop-out. You have just defined it as something which by its very nature I can't get a handle on. But I became intrigued by this other definition. Perhaps it wasn't such a cop-out after all. What if you define God as the things we cannot know? The gods in many ancient cultures were always a placeholder for the things we couldn't explain or couldn't understand. Our ancestors found volcanic eruptions or eclipses so mysterious that they became acts of gods. As science has explained such phenomena, these gods have retreated. Yes. This definition has some things in common with a god commonly called the God of Gaps. God of the Gaps. This phrase was generally used as a derogatory term by the religious thinkers who could see that this God was shrinking in the face of the onslaught of the scientific knowledge, and a call went out to reject this kind of God. The phrase God of Gaps was coined by the Oxford mathematicians and Methodist church leader Charles Colson when he declared, there is no God of Gaps to take over at those strategic places where science fails. But the phrase is also associated with an fallacious argument for the existence of God, one that Richard Dawkins spent some time shooting down in the God delusion. If there are things that we can't explain or know, there must be a God at work filling the gap. But I am more interested not in the existence of the God to fill the gap, but in equating the God with the abstract idea of the things we cannot know. Not in the things we currently don't know, but things that by their nature we can never know. The things that will always remain transcendent. Transcendent. Religions is more complex than the simple stereotype often offered up by the modern society. For many ancient cultures in India, China, and the Middle East, religion was not about worshipping a supernatural intelligence, but precisely the attempt to appreciate the limits of our understanding and language. As the theologian Herbert McCabe declared, to assert the existence of God is to claim that there is an unanswered question about the universe. Science has pushed hard at those limits, so is there anything left? Will there be anything that will always be beyond the limit? Does Maccabe's God exist? This is a quest at the heart of this book. Can we identify questions or physical phenomena that will always remain beyond the knowledge? If we can identify things that will remain in the gaps of the knowledge, then what sort of God is this? What potency could such a concept have? Could the things we cannot know act in the world and affect our futures? Are they worthy of worship? But first, we need to know if in fact there is anything that will remain unanswered about the universe. Is there really anything we cannot know? Wow. Thank you.